Okay.
So this is an interview with Senator Tim Hutchinson on a Saturday afternoon. So to start off with reference to your political and legal background, what's your opinion about the arrival of North African refugees to EU shores? And should they be, in the sense of, should they be considered political refugees or illegal immigrants?
Well, you don't start off with softballs. That's obviously a very tough question. Without having, I will admit, I have not studied the issue in any great depth, but my initial impression would be that they should be treated as political refugees. They are being driven, forced to leave because of the political turmoil in their countries. I know that creates a terrible burden and a terrible difficulty for the receiving countries, but simply from a humanitarian standpoint, I think that we have to try to provide exile for these refugees.
With the question, is that all right? I didn't have a chance to answer it. I'm also his boss, so I'm kind of...
Oh, you can do that?
Yeah.
All right.
I really want to ask. I once heard a phrase, and I was wondering if you could comment. And it was on American voting intentions.
American
voting intentions. How Americans vote.
Yeah.
And they called it the mummy-daddy relationship. That is when there's economic problems and they want health care and they want to be looked after, they want a mummy and they vote Democrat. When they feel like they're in trouble and they're being attacked and they want someone to look after them, they need their daddy and they vote Republican. Do you reckon that's a accurate representation?
Well, like most truisms, there's some truth to it, and there's a little oversimplification. But yes, it's going to be interesting because, for instance, the Tea Party supporters. The Tea Party supporters, their big issue was we got to balance the budget. But there was a recent poll that showed 70% of Tea Party members do not believe Medicare should be touched. You shouldn't cut it at all. Well, you're not going to balance the U.S. budget unless you touch Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and defense spending. So I think there is, we were with a group of retirees, kind of affluent retirees. They were in a retirement home. They're pretty well off. But you mentioned touching Medicare, and they suddenly sound like Democrats, that they're going to vote Democrat. So I think there's an element of truth to that. The real difference this time is the United States has never faced the kind of budget crisis that we now face. And I think the American people are realizing that as they haven't before. So whether they continue to vote for security, vote for social programs, or whether out of concern about the future of the country and that we're facing these enormous debts that are unsustainable with the potential downgrading of our credit rating, it's going to be a real interesting test for the American people how they vote. I think it could go either way. It's unclear, but I don't disagree with with the way you framed it, that there's a tendency to vote for those who are promising we're going to keep these programs intact.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so to move on now to Osama bin Laden's death, and obviously something that's been in the news a lot. Do you think cultural diplomacy can have a role in establishing peaceful relations between US and Islamic countries where terrorism has been particularly prevalent?
Yes, I do. Now, I think that you're always going to have, or you're going to have for the foreseeable future, a fringe element, a small minority that are radicalized and are violent and are willing to sacrifice themselves and their families to promote terror. But Islamic countries, for the most part, have the same desires for safe and secure lives and prosperous lives and an opportunity for their families and their children to have a better future. And I think to the extent that the United States builds trust and shows good faith in trying to help them economically and to help them develop, that there can be much better relations in the future. And Pakistan could be a prime example of where they have been a traditional ally. It's been a bumpy road. There are ongoing tensions between the two. But nonetheless, I think that there's a great common interest in seeing terror defeated and both countries prosper.
And to move on to President Obama, and obviously we've just talked about the upcoming election and how people vote. A lot of talk has been made about and said about President Obama and the shift between soft and hard power in US foreign policies. Do you think that President Obama has really delivered this shift between soft and hard power?
I think he's lived up to his campaign promise to try to change the emphasis of U.S. foreign policy, and a greater emphasis upon dialogue, a greater emphasis upon being open to the opinions and taking seriously the opinions of European allies and nations around the world. That has not always been successful. I think Iran we've not seen a lot of success through the president's willingness to have an unconditional dialogue with Iran. That he's actually backed off of that. But yeah, I think he's lived up to his campaign rhetoric and his promises to try to change the direction of American foreign policy. The U.S. elections are going to hinge far more on the U.S. economy, the unemployment rate, the jobs situation, the price of gasoline, than it is on even the death of bin Laden or other foreign events. Foreign affairs are going to take, I think, a backseat to domestic economic conditions.
Do you think foreign policy objectives could be affected, though, by this perhaps not insular view, but the focus of the US to focus on its own problems? Do you think it could lead to the US almost ignoring foreign policy objectives and focusing on itself more?
Well, I think President Obama has resisted that. So I don't think he has turned the focus away or turned inward, and he's the real director of U.S. foreign policy. So while it might be a temptation of Congress, I don't think it's going to be a problem with this administration. They're going to continue. The president's going to continue to travel overseas. He's going to continue to focus upon his foreign policy objectives. Again, I don't think it makes a huge difference in his domestic political standing. The killing of Osama bin Laden, he got about a 6-point bump in his approval ratings in the polls, which is not a whole lot. So I really do believe it's going to be the economy, but there's not a whole lot the president can do at this point on the U.S. economy. He's done a stimulus package, he's done bailouts, he's tried everything in the world to get the economy back on track. The tools in his toolbox are not very many on the economy right now. So I don't think the president will become insular or turn away from his pretty ambitious foreign policy objectives. And frankly, Secretary Clinton has been one of the strongest members of his administration. I've told her I think she's done a very good job, and I think with her there, you're going to continue to see proper attention given to foreign affairs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Hutchinson.